Transgender athletes are prohibited from playing women's sports by Donald Trump. Citing the need to safeguard female athletes, U.S. President Donald Trump issued an executive order prohibiting transgender athletes from participating in women's sports. Supporters, including prominent Republicans, cheered as the order was signed at the White House, which may deprive schools of federal funding for non-compliance. Trump characterized the action as a defense of the traditions of women's sports. In his most recent action against transgender individuals since taking office again, U.S. President Donald Trump signed an executive order on Wednesday that would prohibit transgender athletes from playing women's sports. In front of dozens of kids and female athletes, Trump declared, "With this executive order the war on women's sports is over," before signing the document at the White House. Prominent Republicans who attended the signing ceremony included firebrand Congresswoman Marjorie Greene and U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson. "We will not permit men to abuse, harm, or defraud our women and girls, and we will stand up for the honorable tradition of female athletes." To cheers, Trump continued, "Women's sports will now be exclusively for women." The directive empowers government agencies to refuse federal funding to institutions that let transgender athletes to play on women's teams. It is the policy of the United States to rescind all funds from educational programs that deprive women and girls of fair athletic opportunities, which results in the endangerment, humiliation, and silencing of women and girls and deprives them of privacy, the executive order stated. Before the Games return to the United States in 2028 in Los Angeles, Trump also stated that he will be pressuring the International Olympic Committee to amend its regulations regarding transgender competitors. He claimed to have instructed Secretary of State Marco Rubio to make it clear to the IOC that we want them to change everything having to do with the Olympics and having to do with this absolutely ridiculous subject. Trump also stated that he had instructed Kristi Noem, the head of Homeland Security, to reject visa applications made by men attempting to fraudulently enter the United States while identifying themselves as women athletes to try and get into the Games. War of Culture. Since his inauguration for a second term on January 20, Republican Trump has issued a barrage of directives that have regularly targeted those who identify as gender non-conforming in an effort to further his extreme right-wing agenda. Transgender troops are essentially prohibited under an order made by Trump to purge the military of what he described as transgender ideology. Additionally, he issued a directive to limit gender transformation processes for those under the age of 19. Even though transgender individuals only comprise a small portion of the U.S. population, the plethora of measures. He took advantage of a larger culture war around the matter to repeatedly attack Democrats on the contentious issue of transgender rights during the 2024 election campaign. "Kamala Harris is for they/them" is one of Trump's most effective attack lines against Kamala Harris, his opponent in the election. "President Trump is for you," a reference to her advocacy for transgender rights. Trump also took aim at her one-time endorsement of prisoner gender transition procedures. Following the passage of a bill by the Republican-controlled House of Representatives in January that severely restricted transgender athletes' participation in women's and girls' sports, he issued his executive order on Wednesday. Women's sports have become a focal point for many conservatives as transgender persons have become more public in the U.S., raising concerns about gender norms and justice. Source: France 24.